Good day, Dr. Sanchez, and good day, fellow classmates. Thank you for taking out time to review my graduate project. My name is Oluwaseun Fowley, and my research topic is titled Discrimination Against People of Color in the Workplace and Its Effect on Employee Engagement. The objective of this research project is to review the effects of discrimination on people of color and how it affects their productivity at work, how it affects their health, how it affects relationships with other people outside of work, including family members, and what steps can be taken to eradicate discrimination in the workplace and push forward the importance of workplace diversity. Hypothesis. Though different forms of discrimination exist, for this project, this research student will be focusing on discrimination in the workplace with particular attention to people of color. In the workplace, discrimination can occur in a variety of ways and it is usually manifested in subtle undertones or, in instances where it is glaring, it is profound and this usually has a negative impact on employee productivity. According to Offerman et al., 2014, discrimination is on the decline and prejudice is on the increase, and the negative effect it has on the workplace cannot be ignored. With adequate training and sensitization of all employees to be cognizant of the fact that they need to treat their co-workers with respect, equally, and with dignity goes a long way in creating a positive work environment for employees. As more companies hire immigrants to work in their establishments, there is a pressing need for indigenous workers to be receiving training on how to be accommodating towards their co-workers and not to come off as abrasive in their mannerisms and dialogue with them. Now we will look into the definition of discrimination. As defined by the Cambridge Dictionary, discrimination is treating a person or a particular group of people differently, especially those in a worse way from the way in which you treat other people because of their skin color, sex, and a host of other defining attributes. These attributes are now known as protected characteristics as defined by Mathis, Jackson, Valentine, and Megley. These characteristics are age, color, disability, genetic information, marital status, military experience, national origin, pregnancy, race, religion, and sexual orientation. To better understand the concept of discrimination, this research student will delve into the history of discrimination and some of the laws that are currently in place to prohibit the occurrence of discrimination in the work environment. The civil rights movement of the 1950s was wrought with protests of man's incivility towards man, particular attention to the treatment of colored people. This brought about the need for non-discriminatory laws into society that also guaranteed an equal opportunity for all to be equally hired based on their skill sets and qualifications. Thus, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was enacted. This ensured that a. It is illegal for any organization to discriminate in any way based on individual sex, race, national origin, color, or religion. Is and B. It is illegal for any organization to discriminate in any way with reference to hiring decisions, employment termination, promotions, demotions, working conditions, compensation, and other work-related occurrences. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was then amended in 1991 to further solidify the fact that discrimination of any form would not be tolerated, and the amendment included legal protection for employees who are discriminated, in that individuals who are bringing their complaint of discrimination are able to identify the particular employer that discriminated against them, and that their protected attributes played a role in the treatment. And another amendment was that individuals targeted receive punitive and compensatory damages as a result of discrimination that they face. Equal employment opportunity. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission was established as a result of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to enforce and ensure that employers were and are compliant with anti-discrimination laws. The Commission is also tasked with investigating cases of discrimination by employers covered by law, as well as create awareness programs to prevent discrimination before it occurs. With information and facts that exist, there is enough evidence to show that the federal government is aware of the issue of discrimination that people of color face and are taking steps to ensure that its reach and effect are mitigated and eventually eradicated. Literature review. Race tends to play a vital role in the workplace environment, and as a result, minorities continue to experience discrimination in terms of pay, promotion, or job preferences. In recent times, racial bias, hate crimes, and other forms of xenophobia have become commonplace in the United States. An experiment was orchestrated by the Urban Institute on Employment Outcomes for Black, Hispanic, and white men with fabricated resumes, in which all resumes were identical except for race, yielded an outcome that Black men were 3 times more likely to be refused a job in comparison to white men, and that Hispanic men were 3 times more likely to face some form of discrimination. In addition, audit studies have shown that sending equally qualified white and racial ethnic minority candidates for job interviews, the former is likely to be called back and to be higher than the latter. This directly indicates that even though they are equally qualified, even though candidates are of the same skill set, of the same learning experience, the white employee or white applicant is more likely to be chosen than the black or colored applicant who has the same qualifications. In a survey of African Americans in Atlanta conducted by Dean Zytham, Nembard, Collins, and Davis in 2004, indicated that 61% reported having experienced race-based discrimination at work. Similarly, a study of 356 African American workers yielded a result of 43% of the 219 workers who reported workplace discrimination reported that the perpetrators included fellow African Americans. In a study of professional workers by Fox and Stallworth in 2005, 50% of African Americans, 57% of Asians, and 37% of Latinos reported having experienced race-related bullying at work. Exposure to racial ethnic discrimination at work is associated with a host of negative outcomes for workers and their families, including decreased job satisfaction and mental and physical health problems. This was as the outcome of a research by Beach, Barsky, Butts, Chan, Brief, and Bradley in 2003 to view the existence and impact of everyday racial discrimination in the workplace. This, however, shows that over a period of time, even though there are laws against discrimination, workplace discrimination is steadily being perpetrated against people of color with disregard of the consequences by employers who either capitalize on the fact that 1. Employees do not know how to go about making complaints about being discriminated against, and 2. Employees have an overwhelming amount of control over the employee that the employee is too scared to do anything about said discrimination. Recently immigrated individuals in today's economy contribute immensely to any labor market they find themselves in, and as expected have higher education levels and work in higher status positions than earlier immigrants into the country, responding to many nations' increasing demand for highly skilled labor. The OECD in 2012 came up with the statistical information that immigrants made up 16% of the workforce in the United States. In research on workplace discrimination by Bengali, Dietz, and Kriegs, immigrants have received little attention. However, theories of prejudice and discrimination suggest that immigrants are likely targets of subtle forms of prejudice and discriminatory behaviors. Subtle interpersonal discriminatory behaviors particularly target members of groups perceived as competent competitors, as researched by Cortina in 2008, Fifth, Cuddy, Glick, and Zhu in 2002. However, members of recent highly skilled immigrant groups may experience more subtle discrimination than members of earlier, less skilled immigrant groups. Discrimination in the workplace is on the decline and prejudice is on the increase. The negative effect that it has on the workplace cannot be ignored. Cortina in 2008 proposed that workplace incivility may take the form of subtle interpersonal discrimination. Incivility is described as a low-intensity, deviant behavior with ambiguous intent to harm the target in violation of workplace norms for mutual respect. Incivilities are general, but if they selectively target a minority group grounded in diffuse anti-minority feelings and stereotypes, they become a form of subtle interpersonal discrimination. Cortina in 2008 also describes incivility as encompass behaviors such as interrupting, ignoring, or using a condescending tone when talking to a coworker of color. Despite their low intensity, these behaviors have several detrimental consequences for targets, which would be employees in this instance, such as greater levels of stress, lower commitment and job satisfaction, or higher quit rates, as indicated by Pearson and Porath in 2004. Uncivil behaviors are characteristically rude and discourteous, displaying a lack of regard for others. When incivility selectively targets members of minority groups based on ambivalent anti-minority feelings and stereotypes, it becomes discrimination. That being said, there are subtle acts of discrimination and the nonchalant behavior of the aggressors. I'm sorry, let me take that again. The subtle acts of discrimination and nonchalant behavior of aggressors, when called out, they tend to have a protocol answer for what they did or why they did what they did, and they don't think or feel that they are being discriminatory towards their coworkers. Selective incivility is hence a particularly well-suited means by which people may mistreat minorities without damaging a non-prejudiced image of themselves and towards others. That this also shows that some people deliberately do what they do to make people feel uncomfortable, particularly people of color, and they try to justify what they did in terms of they believe they did not do anything wrong. They believe that they're justified for what they did. There's a possibility that this might be prevalent in companies where said immigrants have better skill set bases in comparison to their local counterparts and are more educated than their co-workers. Long-term exposure of people of color to discrimination is known to leave psychological effects with these individuals and predisposes them to adverse health conditions. A study by Krieger in 1990 demonstrated how keeping quiet about experiences of discrimination may take a toll on health. African American women who did not tell others about the unfair treatment they received were 4 times more likely to report high blood pressure than women who told others. Racial and ethnic minorities have also been reported to have increased risk of post-traumatic stress disorder related effects when exposed to workplace bullying or discrimination. Similarly, in another study, even though experiences of workplace bullying were significantly associated with negative emotional reactions for all targets, African Americans reported significantly higher emotional response to racial ethnic bullying compared to other groups, as indicated by Fox and Stallworth in their research. Also, generalized bullying has been associated with higher number of psychological symptoms and increases in drinking to intoxication for women compared to men, as indicated by Rospender in 2009. Workplace injustices have been directly associated with 3 types of outcomes: psychological and physical health, health behaviors, and job outcomes. Okechukwu et al. Did research on discrimination, harassment, abuse, and bullying in the workplace and its contribution to occupational health, and have ultimately discovered that the more people of color are exposed to racial discrimination or perceived acts of discrimination in the workplace, it becomes detrimental to their health. Discrimination leads ultimately to diminished employee productivity, and in some instances, cases of absenteeism, coming to work late, and general forms of withdrawal. This is indicative of employees who used to be at work on time, employees who used to come to work and give their all. Now, due to racial discrimination in the workplace, their productivity has dropped. Their work experience is not what it used to be, and some of them withdraw into themselves, more or less creating a shell around themselves and keep to themselves. And most start becoming absent at work, don't even come to work, or they get burnt out. With adequate training and making employees to be cognizant of the fact that they need to treat their co-workers with respect, equally, and with dignity goes a long way in creating a positive work environment for employees and reducing discrimination in the workplace. Capone and Avery came up with a theoretical model of employee disengagement due to discrimination at work. When forms of discrimination occur, either sexual discrimination, race, age, family obligation, and sexual orientation, and employees decide that they are going to cope with the situation by changing their situations or avoiding talking about it, it has a psychological effect on the employee. The employee becomes disengaged or the employee becomes burnt out, and which leads to physical withdrawal symptoms as a result of the discrimination. They start coming late to work, they have they are more inclined to quit their jobs, or they are absent from work. This study will have one major limitation. Sample size will be taken from a single location due to time and monetary constraints and will not yield a wide area view of perceived acts of discrimination across different organizations. In addition, due to the fact that most organizations do not like to air their dirty linen to third parties, there is an issue of some organizations that will be unwilling to allow their employees participate in a service such as this, as it might mar or damage the image of the organization. For methodology, for a quantitative study of this research topic, this research student will be using questionnaires to gather data for this research with employees of a state agency in the state of Texas. The sample size will be 30 employees currently employed by the state of Texas. The first question on the questionnaire was their age. We had one recipient between the ages of 26 and 35. We had 24 recipients between the ages of 36 and 45, 3 recipients between the ages of 46 and 55, and 2 recipients between the ages of 56 and 65. When it came to ethnicity, 25 of the recipients were Black, African American, or of African origin. We had 1 Hispanic, 3 white, and 1 Asian. When asked what discrimination was, all recipients indicated that they were aware of what discrimination is and what it entails. When asked if they have ever been discriminated against at work, 27 of the recipients indicated that they had been discriminated at work, and 3 said they had not been discriminated at work at all, against at work at all. When asked how often they were discriminated at work, 4 of the recipients indicated that once a week they were discriminated against. 10 of the recipients said few times in a month they were discriminated against. 8 of the recipients said few times a year they were discriminated against. 5 recipients said they were discriminated against often, and 3 recipients said they had never been discriminated against at work. When asked if they were discriminated based on skin color or because of their skill set, 13 of the recipients indicated that they were discriminated against based on color, 10 indicated they were discriminated against based on their skill set, and 4 indicated they were discriminated against because of both based on both color and skill set. Now, 3 recipients were given what indicated that they had not been discriminated against at all, and therefore this question was not applicable to them. When asked if they reported the act of discrimination against them, 5 indicated that they did report it, 22 indicated that they did not report, and 3 of the 30 recipients did not feel that this question was relevant to them. When asked if the act of discrimination affected productivity at work, 14 recipients said yes, 9 recipients said no, 4 recipients said somewhat, and 3 recipients indicated that this did not apply to them. When asked if the acts of discrimination affected their health in any way, 2 said yes, it affected their health as they now experience high blood pressure. 25 said no, they were not affected, their health was not affected in any way, and 3 recipients indicated that this did not apply to them. When asked if any action was taken to correct the situation, 2 recipients indicated that yes, actions were taken to rectify the situation, the discrimination against them. 25 indicated that no, there was no rectification of the situation, and 3 recipients indicated that this was not applicable to them. And the last question on the questionnaire was if they have ever discriminated against someone, and all recipients said no, they have not discriminated against anyone. The outcome of this data, even though it's limited, shows that clearly there's still discrimination occurring in the workplace. Most employees either do not care about the issues of discrimination or do not know how to go about it, and as such just leave issues as they were, and that is not productive for the work environment as it keeps on festering. It will continue to fester and fester, not like a gnawing wound, and precipitously everyone becomes a victim of discrimination. In conclusion, the current state of the economy is highly productive due to the fact that there are more immigrants working within the borders of the United States of America. The majority of these individuals come to the country via the diversity visa program that is run by the U.S. Department of State. Most of these individuals are highly skilled workers, highly educated, and are hardworking. Concurrently, they are a highly diverse group, differing not only in terms of culture, but also in terms of education and skill level. Discrimination adversely affects health, physically and psychologically. Even though the literature and data on this aspect of the link between both is limited, it still should not be overlooked. There are laws that exist to protect the rights to work and be free from prejudice or discrimination while individuals live and work in the U.S. Employees that are content with their job environment tend to be more productive. Employees who work in a hostile, free environment who are also treated as equals and who are respected regardless of the color of their skin are more productive. When the work environment is more conducive and all parties concerned have a mutual understanding of each other's backgrounds, cultures, organizational goals, and targets are achieved. The gap created between personal convictions, perceived misconceptions, and group culture behavior in the workplace is bridged when there is a zero tolerance level for discrimination in the workplace, and if it's enforced, it makes the workplace a better place to be. Recommendations. This research student would recommend organizational retreats where everyone is on the same level, is everyone is plain Jane for the day. There are no managers, there's no senior man. Everyone has to sit down and come together and talk about diversity, talk about culture, talk about upbringing, because if individuals who sit together, talk to each other, learn more about each other, it reduces the occurrence of discrimination in the workplace. Also, this research student will recommend diversity training annually for all organizations that hire different nationalities and different ethnicities. A traditional classroom mode of delivery is recommended for this training because a face-to-face approach to dealing with discrimination against people of color is better than an online approach where people are in different locations and can't have a feel of what it is to be beside someone of a different ethnic origin. Employees from upper management to the low-level employees should be scheduled to attend the training, and bringing individuals together under a single roof rather over any form of electronic media will better enhance the experience for all parties involved. Thank you for taking your time out to listen, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.